Hi, everybody. I'm Xuan from Taiwan. Actually, Taiwan is 1 hour behind Korea, so I'm actually not from the future. But today I'm going to still talk about future democracy. And I kind of saw future democracy from demos because I think it's very futuristic, very interesting model that we can all try and how we can prototype future democracy in a way. That's very beautiful. Thank you. In Taiwan, we've been trying to prototype future democracy for the past 30 years, since 1987, since the lift of martial law in 1987. And for the past 30 years, we can observe a change because public participation in Taiwan has been developed in several formats, from face-to-face to deliberate over the internet. So we can see when technology arrived, democracy also evolved. In this picture, you can see people in this picture participating in a hackathon-like event organized by GovZero. GovZero is one of the largest civic tech community in Taiwan. And people participating in this event are civic hackers like designers, coders, policymakers, activists. They join these hackathons every 2 months, and it's an open event, open for everyone to join, every Taiwanese citizens and also international guests to join. And in the events, in the hackathons, they are really gathering to think about how we can iterate democracy better using current or emerging technologies. Because we believe that we should have a say on where we go as a society. And also more than that, we should also have a make on where we go as a society. So in the hackathons like this, we make different civic ideas and try to prototype future democracy. One of the very interesting motto from GovZero is to be nobody. That is about asking, instead of asking why nobody's doing this, we can be let nobody, so we can start doing this, doing things. Another call to action is to fork the government, which actually means we look at the government websites that we don't like, that's provided by the government, that ends with gov.tw, and we start making a new website that ends with g0v.tw. And then for citizens' perspective, it's very easy to find better service because as a citizen, if I want to use a public service, I simply need to go to a public website and change the O to 0. And all of a sudden, I'm entering a shadow government with, say, open data, better experience, and everything like that. In 2014, a very interesting movement happened or took place in Taiwan. It's called Sunflower Movement. That happens when some students wouldn't bear with the unwillingness of the parliament at that time to deliberate about a surface trade deal with China. So some students enter the parliament and occupy there for 22 days and start doing a very real deliberation. For almost a month, they enter the parliament and start discuss about how we can have a better proposal for this surface trade deal. And for GovZero civic hackers, what do? They also enter the parliament and start doing something they are very good at, which is to live stream the events. Because every hackathon, we also live stream the events. So that the activities in the parliament could be really documented, filmed, and open to the world to see, so that it could be reported as how it was, as nonviolent and peaceful. So you can imagine in that time in Occupy, in the movement, people were simply having this open space technology style of unconference, simply talking about how we want our society to be, instead of having any kind of pre-agenda before we go into the protest. And during that moment of time, we, in a society, we all share a sense of need that we need a platform to discuss about how we want our society to be. No matter people in the parliament or people on the street or people working for the government or people not working for the government, we all share this kind of sense that we need some new change, some new platform to bring us to the next level. So that time, one of the ministers with our portfolio, Jacqueline Tsai, went to GovZero's hackathon and proposed this idea. So think about it. A government official went to a civic hackers community and proposed an idea to say, okay, let's can you build a platform that allows the entire society to be engaged in rational discussion? And some civic hackers, civic makers also took the idea, took the pitch, and built the platform V-Taiwan. Maybe not many of you know about V-Taiwan, so I'm gonna go through a bit how it works. It's pretty similar, surprisingly, to demos from Korea, so I'd like to also do lots of exchange. So what is V-Taiwan? V-Taiwan is it could look like a website, it could look like a process, but it's actually an experiment to prototype open consultation process for digital regulatory reform. So we are changing regulations, we're changing laws through a consensus, a collective consensus, and we're going to prototype that process. So in the beginning, when we started V-Taiwan, there's a rough process from proposing an idea to collect opinions from the society, and then we will really come together and think about what we want to write in a draft bill, and then write the bill, and then send the bill to the parliament. But throughout the time, we also figured out that every regulatory reform is actually suitable for different processes. So it's very important that the process is alive, it's organic in a way that every case can have its own process. And through V-Taiwan's weekly hackathon, we talk about what kind of process we want to adapt for different cases. And the technology behind V-Taiwan is also not a secret at all. We simply collect lots of technology, lots of tools, digital tools mainly, to facilitate the conversation. So we do have a huge pool of digital tools that is originally designed for online collaboration. And then we just simply adopt all these tools according to the processes. So probably you can use co-budget also one day, and for the collaboration muscle building exercise also, we'd like to use that too. So for example, when we had one of the cases when we tried to regulate Uber, in the comment curation phase, we talk about what kind of tools we want to use to facilitate this kind of conversation, because during that time we expected that there will be a larger participant, especially online participant, for Uber's conversation. So we talk about it, and we decided to use a new tool called Polis. It's a tool that is empowered by AI and can help us compute consensus from a very large participation. So that we did use that. It was the first time we used that, and we did got help from Polis, and it helped us compute consensus from among 200,000 people in Taiwan. And every week we organize hackathons like this. It does look like a lot of people just having pizza together, because food and conversation bring us together, and we utilize this kind of space and time to talk about how we want to facilitate the process, and also what kind of tools we want to use. The V-Taiwan's weekly hackathon is also an open event. We simply announce the time and space to meet up so that people can drop by anytime, and they can also have the food. So simply we gather around the food we like, and also the social issue we like to talk about. In one of the cases of Uber, the Polis interface, the Polis tool we utilized was also with the interface like this. So after the hackathons, we will go to the next stage and start visualizing feelings of people, how people feel about this case, feel about this kind of regulation we want to reform. So in the top section, you can see people can, as a user, you can see lots of comments from other participants. And then you can choose to agree, disagree, or pass, meaning simply say, I don't know, I'm not sure about what this comment is about, or I'm not sure to agree or disagree. And then you can also choose to write down your own comments in the middle section, and that will be brought into another algorithm called principal components analysis algorithm, and then be clustered, projected onto this 2D interface and visualized over here. This is very graphical interface for visualizing a conversation for among this one is around 4,000 people, to really see how people are grouped into different organizations. And in the beginning, we probably can observe people who are more pro-Uber or more against Uber. And then people do gather and start to merge consensus in the very end of the conversation after about 1 month. It is, for me, it's a very peaceful conversation because there's no way actually you can find a reply button. So what you can do is actually you can submit your own feelings and suggestions and to come up with a more constructive feedback. This is a report after we have policy conversation, and from one end to another end, we often see the conversation migrate from the beginning from one end to another end, which is more divisive statement to a more consensus statement. Because there was no reply button, people tried to come up with a more neutral, more constructive feedback or comment to contribute to the conversation. So you can start to see more and more consensus statements emerge, and that would become the core consensus that will bring to the next stage, and then ratify those core consensus into regulations. So after that, we'll come together and have a more face-to-face meeting again. But again, the meeting is in the physical room, but at the same time also connected with the internet because it's an online and offline reflective space. The special design for this space is really about connecting online and offline space because we have a particular set sitting for the stakeholders, but also we have cameras around the room to really film and document all the conversation out. So that online users can also convey their ideas, not only having a look on what is going on in their physical room during the meeting, but also they can type down their ideas on the chat channel, and then the facilitator will read out their ideas from time to time. So that as an online user, you can have that second body in the room and also sometimes be immersed in these 360 videos. So you can have a sense of immersion and really participate in the conversation. So to date, more than 26 topics in total have been discussed on V-Taiwan, with 5 law amendments and 2 regulatory reforms. V-Taiwan is really an experiment that brings people together in the center of governance. That brings people, including government officials, including activists, including social societies and public sectors together into talking about what we want to change for our regulation. We call this concept a recursive public. It's the term borrowed from a professor called Christopher Kelty. He described recursive public as an interactive environment that is always evolving through a collective consensus and to change the environment. And V-Taiwan is an interactive environment that is capable of speaking to existing form of power through an evolving rough societal consensus. So when I look at V-Taiwan, it's actually not only an experiment for Taiwanese government to experiment on how we can co-create policy together with the citizens, but it is also an experiment to try and think how we can prototype a large-scale consensus generation. It's also a way for us to think about how we can work and think together, because that's being brought up by many talks today. To really make a change, we need to work and think together. And I see V-Taiwan is one of a very beginning prototype. It's only been 4 years we are trying this, but it's been quite effective because it's a sustainable and scalable system. V-Taiwan has begun its own life in different places, such as New York, Toronto, and Tokyo. And you can see Taiwanese government as a bubble tea. But V-Taiwan has this very special thing about it. It's really a model that is trying to be recursive from the beginning. So I'd like to invite more conversation later. If you are interested in this model and how it works, you're welcome to the session tomorrow at 7 p.m. And I'd like to also check out what is, for example, what is demos really, how demos really work and other models as well. So if you're interested in joining this community also, you can join us on the journey of prototyping future democracy and be nobody. If you type this in if you type join.gov0.today in one of your browser URL, you can join our Slack group right away. Thank you.